Joining us now on the record show is someone who's not only a Michigan rock and roll legend, but dare I say, an international rock and roll legend. I'd like to welcome to the record show, Suzi Quatro. Suzi, thank you very much for joining us today.
It is my pleasure. And I'd like you to know that I stopped rehearsing. I was in my front room with my bass, with the carpet rolled up, going back and forth as if I'm on the stage. You have to see it to believe it. If anybody walks by, they look at it and they'll say, Suzi Quatro is there. She's lost it.
I don't think so at all. You know, you got to stay on top of that with those skills, correct?
You really do. Yeah, you do.
Well, we're gonna get to your releases. You just released your 17th studio album, Devil in Me, very recently. You had a record store day release, and I'd like to get on to those in a little bit. But first, I'd like to back way up, if I could, to talk a little bit about your beginnings here in Michigan. And you were part of just a really burgeoning rock and roll scene in the late 60s and early 70s, really kind of working alongside and working to, break out with groups like Nugent and Cooper and a whole host of other acts that came from this area at that time. Could you recount your beginnings a little bit? Tell us how you got started and what was it like in that era with these bands and with what you were doing?
Well, I started in 64. I was only 14. I'm very young. I'm now 58 years in the business. Unbelievable. So I was young. And when I first began, the other bands that you just mentioned, they weren't colleagues of mine, but they were bands I saw play, And then by the time I was 16, and we had been playing for a bit, then we started to do all the same gigs together. We're all old friends. Mitch Ryder, Ted, my God, my brother used to book him. Alice and I, it's well documented. We have a serious friendship since I was 15, goes on today. Mitch Ryder, great band, great, one of the best drummers ever. Bob Seger, who actually supported the Pleasure Seekers, my first band. I think it was at the Crow's Nest, And he came in, I never forget it. He came in with his acoustic guitar at a rock and roll gig, sat on the stage and played all original material. And I just was watching. Wow. I was watching him and I was watching, first of all, going, what's he doing? And then within about 5 minutes, I was going, wow, because he had it. What a chance to rock and roll gig. And he came and sat on the stage. And I went, wow, really good. So anyway, they soon became all our colleagues. And on we went. Whenever I get together with any of the Detroit people, we talk at length about Detroit, because it has a special, God, without getting too boring about it. Detroit has an edge. It has a black and white communion, always has. We get along, we always have. You've got the mixture between the Motown and then the white rock and the this and the that. And I know that's politically incorrect, but I don't care. Musically speaking, I think it's one of the best cities in the world.
And you really hit that on the head. I think all of those, especially in a state, in an area, so to speak, in Detroit, to have that mixture of genres and both of them able to coexist, not just that, but able to push out and gain just immense popularity is really a rarity.
It's crazy. You've got Martha the Vandellas, okay, way back when. Smokey Robinson, all those great 60s Motown bands. Then you got all the 60s people that I just mentioned. Then you got following on from that, Eminem, Kid Rock, the White Stripes. The amount of acts and different acts that have come out of Detroit is amazing. But yet we all have that same energy and edge in common. Foot on the gas. It is foot on the gas.
Straight up for Motor City. That's why.
Absolutely. And the last track on my current album, I know you're getting to it later, but just because I was just rehearsing it, Motor City Riders, that's the track. That is about my hometown. And when I wrote that with my son, I sat and I did those lyrics. I don't usually work so hard on lyrics, but that one had a place in my heart, and I wanted it to represent exactly what it was like being a 60s teenager in Detroit. And I think I accomplished that.
It is a great album. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second or two. You mentioned the Pleasure Seekers, and at a time when all of these acts were kind of coming forward you and that group, your family members included, really kind of took a different tack in that effort to make a name for yourselves. How was that different in that era for you, being a part of that band and then moving on to Cradle and then ultimately to solo work?
Well, when we started off, so it was 1964, and we were all girls, which automatically was different. And by the way, I don't do gender. I didn't care if it was monkeys in the band. I really didn't care. But anyway, we were an all-girl band because my sister wanted an all-girl band. And the Pleasure Seekers became very quickly, I don't even know if it was on purpose. It just morphed into that. We became a very, very, very good show band. We had costumes. We would change instruments mid-song. We do a Motown set. We do a British Invasion set. We do a Top 40 set. We do a Stone set. We do a Sgt. Pepper set. Incredible. So we were a show band, and we were different than all the other acts at the time because it was all, especially in the 66, 67, 68, 67, 68, it started to become festivals, and that was not who we were. And I tell the story in my documentary, Suzi Q, about how we went up to do one of my brother's festivals as the show band Pleasure Seekers. And we were used to just storming the place, and we didn't do well. And so it was that point that we decided a change was in order. And I would take a step back and not be the complete front person, give my little sister a chance. She came and knew. She was more of that jamming era. And we became heavier, lasted about 18 months, did all our own songs, jammed a lot. I did about 5 songs a night on vocals, as opposed to being 99.99% of all the songs. So that gave me, that little 18 months gave me the space to become really good on my bass. That's what I did.
And at that point too, you began to break off solo, and you took I mentioned a different tack from a lot of Michigan artists at that time. You took your work overseas. Tell me a little bit about the decision to do that. Was it difficult? But ultimately, I think it's what really helped cement you as a phenomenal solo artist.
I'm not the only one. I mean, Jimi Hendrix did it. God, who else was there now? There was a few came over here, got discovered here. It just happened. As I said, the Cradle wasn't really my band. And I've said this to my sisters many times. It's not a big secret. I wasn't really as happy in Cradle as I had been in the Pleasure Seekers, obviously. I'm never ever going to be just a bass player. That's not who I am. But Elektra Records came to see Cradle in Detroit, and they didn't want the band at all, and they offered me a solo contract. And the president, Jack Holtzman, told me he would take me to New York and form a male band around me and make me into the next Janis Joplin. That very same week, as fate decrees, Mickey Most flew over from England with Jeff Beck and Cozy Powell. They were recording at Motown. He saw the band, same week. He didn't like the band. Again, you got to listen to it when this happens twice in 1 week. And he said, I want you only. I'd like you to come to England. I'll get a male band around you. We'll make a record, and I'll make you into the first Suzi Quatro. So emotionally, very hard, but business-wise, it really was kind of a no-brainer. I had to go. That was my chance, and you don't turn that down. You don't turn that down.
And that really, as I said, it helped really cement you as an artist. You didn't want to be the next Janis Joplin. You became, as you mentioned, the first Suzi Quatro.
And to be honest, to be very honest, and I've talked to other people, other artists who are famous. I hate using that word. What other word can you use? Known.
Yep.
And we've all agreed. So some big names. We've had this discussion, and we've talked about it with the drink after a show, whatever. And I said, were you surprised that you got singled out? And none of us can say yes, we were surprised. Because I think there's an inner built knowing within you, and it starts from when you're very young and we're out there doing the shows, and I notice all the eyes are on me. You can't help but see it.
Yep.
You can't. And I remember one of the first times this happened, I must have been 16. And my elder sister's first husband out of 7, don't go there. He was managing the band. He's managing the band, and we had loaded in all the equipment. And we were loading everything up, setting this. We didn't have any roadies back then, and the lights were going up. And he turned to the band as we're loading in the rest of the band, and he said, now you do know that most of the lights have to go on Suzie. I went. How to make friends with the rest of the band. Really, now, all honesty, I did not say that. He said that.
Yep.
So these kind of things go into your little brain, and you realize that you've got that little bit, I guess, for want of a better word, the X factor, and there's always one in every band, and it doesn't matter if you're with the band or you're solo. I've had maybe 60 different musicians in my band. And as long as they're good musicians, it doesn't make a difference who's in there.
That's good. Well, now the next step in this entire, we'll call it a saga at this point, is Leather Tuscadero. Can I go there and talk about how that happened and what that meant to you as far as really kind of a rediscovery, if you will, back in the States?
Well, I was on my first hit in 73 all around the world. Started to tour America again with my UK band in 74. We played everywhere. Did the big Alice Cooper Welcome to My Nightmare 75. I was very well known in America. The singles missed America, as they all did. 73, 74. Nobody that was having hits all around the world was having them in America. I don't know why. You just missed out on that whole era. Anyway, I was there. I was known. I was selling records. I was on tour. I toured Japan every year from 74 onwards. 77, I was there on tour. And my publicist, Toby Mamus, who now works for Alice Cooper, he called me and he said that there was this show called Happy Days, and they wanted me to fly over and audition. Apparently, they had the script for a long time, 6 months maybe, and they couldn't find what they were looking for. They knew what they were looking for. They couldn't find it. And the casting directors, she's Gary Marshall's sister, bless him. Hi, Gary. He appeared on my documentary before it passed away. She saw a collage of the Rolling Stone covers on her daughter's wall. And my cover was on there. And she said, "Who's that? That's who we want." And her daughter said, "That's Suzi Quatro." So, then they find me. I flew over. I auditioned. It turned into 3 seasons. A decision I took. I knew I could act. And I thought to myself, when I'd met everybody and I saw what kind of show it was, I thought, okay, yeah, I can do this.
And you really got to perform as Leather Tuscadero, but really as Suzi Quatro.
Well, it was both. I was acting a role. I was a thief in school. It was acting, but I got to use a lot of my persona in there. Sure. And I think America really discovered Suzi Quatro through Leather Tuscadero, which is completely backwards. Yeah. Everywhere else in the world, they say to me, "Didn't you act on a TV show?" And in America, they go, "Leather Tuscadero." Okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You got there in the end. However you found me, you found me.
And that's great. You're still making music today, which is the coolest thing ever. Which gets me to this next thing. You, back in March, released your 17th studio album, The Devil in Me. And I'll tell you what, this thing rocks. I'm not kissing up here. This does rock indeed. What does it take to keep making music like this after these years and want to put that and drive you to put stuff like this out?
Well, I wish I could say at the age of 71 that I've matured. I have not. I think I will die with the fire in my belly. I think that's just me. And by the way, that's Detroit as well. I have a need to create. A need. That's a big word. I have a need to communicate. I have a need to entertain. And I will keep doing it until I'm 6 foot under. I still love, every time I go on stage, it's like the first gig all over again. And what really turned me on, again, to tell you the truth, was the last 2 albums that I did with my son. No Control from 2019 and this one. I didn't know he was so good. I didn't, I'm going to use Kirk Douglas's line from his autobiography. He said, "I wished I'd known Michael was going to be so famous. I would have been nicer to him as a kid."
Well, but it's in the genes.
But this album, I have heard from every critic all over the world. It's my best work. It's fantastic. Yep. My son has made me see me fresh through his eyes, if that makes sense.
It does. Tell me a little bit more about the cut, the Motor City Riders. You'd mentioned that is really kind of an homage to Detroit, your beginnings. What's into this song for you?
It talks about that whole time when the riots were happening and, everybody was scared. We're watching it on TV. There's machine guns across the street and very unrest. It says it in the words, we're going out of town. We're looking up on the bridge. There's people on the bridge. We're going to our gig in Buffalo. The whole car full of people. I'll never forget it. But it's also saying in the chorus, Motor City Riders, invincible survivors, taking every fighter to the wall. Motor City Riders, unshakable survivors, knocking down dividers, standing tall. There you go. God, I just
That's
recited
amazing.
The whole area. Okay.
You did. There you go. Now, very recently, you were included into the Record Store Day, which is a phenomenal event for stores like ours. We are very thankful for the artists that allow their works to be used. But you had a live and kickin' release come out for Record Store Day, and this was a 1977 concert from Japan. How did these discussions go when you were approached by either the label or your management saying, hey, this Record Store Day thing, we'd like you to be a part of that?
Oh God, yeah, sure, be a part of it. Okay, anything that gets you out there, fine. And that live and kicking is pretty good. And I insisted on it being recorded beginning to end of the concert with no cuts, just concert, beginning to end, and it rocks.
It does. Oh yeah, we cracked one open and we're giving it a spin here. So with both this Record Store Day release and your latest Devil in Me, they saw releases on vinyl, which again, stores like ours are very thankful for, but that's also a big part of your history as well, having it as something physical, a piece of vinyl, a record for folks to have of your work. Is that something that's always been very important to you as well?
Oh God, I think it's very important. Absolutely. I mean, my God almighty, you have to embrace the technology and the modern generation. Of course you do. I'm on social media all the time, but I gotta say, it's not the same as holding it in your hand. It's just not, And also they have to address, as you know, all the artists are complaining about it. The streaming is just, you get nothing from it.
Yeah.
And it's not right. It's not right. You make your record, you put out your baby, you promote it, and you don't get anything. So, and I don't even need the money. It's not for that reason. It's just unbalanced. I think it's unbalanced at the moment and has to be addressed. And a lot of artists are speaking out about it,
Well, the fact that your works are still available on vinyl, and we do see we call them vintage, and a lot of your stuff is well loved, which means that the albums were passed around at parties a lot, but it's great to see them come through on both the vintage side and the new stuff being released on vinyl, and we're very appreciative of that. Okay, you mentioned your documentary, and this is something that is obviously a very, very personal item for you, and that is available for folks to still watch?
Oh God, yeah, it's been everywhere. It was in so many theaters around the world. I think 52 in England, 82 in Australia, sat at the top of the Amazon charts for a long time. The critics raved. They raved because I insisted on it being warts and all. I said to the director, if you want, she's wonderful. You got the wrong girl. I want the truth to be told. And so I put the record straight with it. It's a great documentary. It'll make you cry. You must watch it. Suzi Q.
We'll look that up, and if we see it, we'll put a link out to some sources of that for you. So, well, you had mentioned rehearsing back and forth. So that means that there's going to be some performances coming up now that things are getting back to an, well, air quote, normal here.
Sure. We had the first one June the 12th at the Showground here in Peterborough. That was great. Only half the people could come in at tables, as is the rule, and they could stand up but stay up their seat. But now things are starting to loosen up. I hope. I mean, I know it's looser in America, but who knows what's going to happen? All those people, could start the whole thing again. My diary is full from September onwards. Fingers crossed. I'm keeping my chops in. I'm doing my show in the front room. Got to do it. You got to do it.
And as I said, you're gonna hold that guitar and keep making music as long as possible, correct?
Absolutely. I'm not done yet.
Great. All right. Well, I'd like once again to thank Suzi Quatro for taking the time to chat with us today. Best of luck with the new album. Best of luck getting back out there. And as always, thank you so much for making the music and making Michigan artists proud.
And thank you. Thanks a lot.